There is a moment, right after the galaxy pulls you from your bed and into the dark, when you look at your ship and you understand exactly how much the universe thinks of you.
For most of humanity, that moment lasted about 3 seconds before the awe kicked in.
For Han Minjun, that moment lasted considerably longer because the ship the universe handed him was a rested escape pod, barely larger than a camper van.
The cracked viewport was the first thing he noticed, a spiderweb fracture running across the lower third of the only window between him and the vacuum outside.
The second thing he noticed was the oxygen alarm, already screaming before he had fully opened his eyes. And the third thing, the thing that made the first two feel almost quaint, was the galactic ranking panel sliding into view and placing his name at the very bottom of a list containing billions of entries.
Not near the bottom, not in the lower percentile, the absolute last position, in dim text, like the system itself was embarrassed to include him.
Dead last on a board of billions, on a ship the system rated as scrap, with 14% hull integrity and 6 hours of oxygen left on the clock. That was how Han Minjin's first morning in the survival galaxy began.
World Chat discovered him within seconds.
A handle named Coilbreaker opened a public broadcast asking the entire region whether the scrap-grade escape pod at the floor of the ranking was real or a system glitch.
The region confirmed it was real, and 10,000 people used a cartoon sad-face pod sticker in the next 30 seconds.
A pirate handle called Vermilion added a note to a separate thread. Anyone at the bottom of the board was free salvage, and the pack should sweep the region before the day rotated.
Minjun read all of it, sitting on the deck plate with grease on his palms, and did not write back.
He had been the kid in the corner of the engineering lab for 3 years, the one everyone forgot about until they needed the soldering iron heated.
Mockery was just noise. Noise did not kill you. Oxygen leaks killed you.
So he went to work on the oxygen scrubber. The intake filter was half clogged with rust flakes from the ship's own ducting. He cleaned it against his sleeve and slotted it back. He found the engine next, a 2-coil thrust unit with a safety pin bent across the throttle linkage, designed to prevent the engine from pushing past 40%.
Amateur work, his uncle would have called it. Wrong gauge wire, wrong intent, built for someone the system trusted with even less.
Behind the storage closet, he found the leak, a microfracture through the port wall, cold air whispering out into the void in a thin, steady stream.
He slapped 2 layers of hole tape over it, and the whisper slowed, but did not stop.
4 hours of safe operation, the wall was telling him, not 6. The ship panel had been lying. He found the hidden compartment in the emergency ration box by accident, pressing an inner panel the star eye had not yet shown him.
Inside, a single fuel cell, a hand-stitched cloth patch bearing a logo he did not recognize, and a folded note in clean handwriting.
The note said, "The engine bypass works at 62%, not 60. Do not push past 65, or the right coil will crack."
A previous owner had survived long enough on this pod to learn its limits, and then had not survived long enough to use what they learned.
Minjun folded the note and put it in his chest pocket.
He had been in the survival galaxy for less than an hour, and someone was already helping him from beyond the grave.
It was the cloth patch that stopped him cold. Hand-stitched, thread too neat for a casual maker, a stylized eye inside a ring of stars. Not human. Or not human as he knew human.
When he looked at it, the pale blue panel that had opened under his hands on the deck plate went very still.
Then a single line appeared and faded before he could capture it. Recognition pending. Insufficient data.
The panel had arrived 20 minutes earlier, when he pressed both palms flat to the deck and felt a hum the ship panel had never mentioned.
Not the engine hum, not the scrubber. Something deeper, sitting inside the metal itself. The panel that appeared above his hands was pale blue, with no header, no system banner, no welcome chime.
The first line wrote itself slowly. Star system initializing. Welcome. Survivor who needs me most.
The second, awaiting host confirmation.
He had looked at the panel, looked at the fuel gauge bleeding down at the corner of his vision, looked at the world chat scrolling its mockery, and made the only logical choice.
Confirm.
The system acknowledged it the way a door acknowledges a key. Quiet, certain, no fanfare.
Star Eye. That was what the system called itself, though it had not introduced itself by name.
He had named it from the echo of a thought that arrived before he had even understood what was happening.
What the Star Eye told him first was this: beneath the deck plate of his rusted escape pod, hidden under the seam he had been kneeling on, sat an ancient evolution core.
Dormant. Growth limit unknown. Compatible with modules from any ship class in the galaxy.
Either the universe had a sense of humor, or somebody owed him a significant apology.
The Star Eye was a censor and a librarian, not a sword. It would not shoot for him, repair for him, or drive the ship.
What it would do was read. Seams in enemy hulls, parasite nests in wrecked corridors, drone patrol arcs. The precise second a turn became a window. In his uncle's repair shop, back in the alley 2 doors from the noodle place that closed before sunset, the most valuable thing on the shelf had not been the soldering iron. It had been the ability to look at a dead device and explain exactly why it was dead.
Knowledge, his uncle always said, keeps the shop fed.
The galaxy was a much bigger shop. The same rule applied. With the fuel cell from the hidden compartment bumping his reserve from 12 to 19%, Minjun sat in the pilot seat, refitted the harness 1 click tighter, and pushed the Star Eye outward into the dark. At 3,000 kilometers off, past a slow-tumbling iron asteroid and a field of broken transport hull pieces, a signature resolved. Abandoned mining wreck, Class 3. No living crew. No claimed owner. The Star Eye named it the Iron Pilgrim and began listing what was inside.
3 full oxygen tanks, 6 hull plates, a basic engine coil, 2 repair drones with exposed chassis joints, a parasite nest near the gutted front mount, heat sensitive, currently active.
And at the back, in the rear cargo bay, a sealed data core. Energy signature consistent with a cargo expansion unit. Compatible with ancient evolution core. Tier 1 fusion event. Possible. The Star Eye added 1 more line, in slightly fainter text, as though uncertain whether it was overstepping. Maximum estimated salvage value, sufficient for 1 Tier 1 fusion event. So that was the math. 3,000 kilometers on 19% fuel, against 2 drones, a frozen nest, and a timer counting down on a cracked wall.
Coilbreaker was scanning world chat, not debris fields. Choy Dohun's pirate pack was 20,000 kilometers away, fat and slow on stolen rations.
Nobody else with the patience in the scanner tier was watching the same quiet patch of space.
The wreck was his if he moved now.
He did it the way his uncle had taught him to handle a borrowed wrench. Right gauge wire on the bypass, 2 clean wraps, tape over the wraps. Set the mental governor at 60 instead of 62. Leave margin.
The Rust Ark's engine caught on the second try.
Coils whined. The cabin shuddered like an old delivery truck warming up.
Outside the cracked viewport, a pale blue line traced the route. Course to wreck. Estimated burn time 1 hour 20.
Halfway there, a pirate handle named Vermilion broadcast on regional that any low-rank pod near a certain grid coordinate was fair game, 2 sectors away. Not his problem yet. The handle went into the mental file. Dangerous. Deputy grade.
Old Pilot's handle appeared in the regional thread while he crossed the debris field, answering panicked new passengers in a calm voice that sounded like someone who had survived a long time by not raising it.
Check oxygen first, then fuel. Old Pilot's thread read. Ignore distress signals from unverified handles. Avoid running from pirates if you can hide. Survive day 1. Then we will talk about day 2. Filed under mentor grade. Not an ally yet. Something close. A handle named Greyark broadcast panic on the open channel. Oxygen at 5%, fuel cells dry,
trading anything for coordinates. Old Pilot answered calmly. 2 minutes later, Greyark's signal vanished from the public list.
The ship panel updated the regional death count. 19,000 in the first hour, 68,000 across all regions.
Minjun read the numbers and felt only a slow tightening of resolve. His job was to not be one of them.
The Iron Pilgrim resolved on his scanner 40 minutes out, half-rotated in the dark, conduit drifting from a torn flank.
He docked carefully, magnetic clamp engaging with a soft bump, seal pressure climbing until it locked at green.
Inside the corridor, emergency lights pulsed amber in the cold. A crewman in a torn pressure suit lay frozen against the wall 10 meters in, one hand still reaching toward a console that had never lit.
Star Eye, I read her quietly. Decompression, 3 days ago.
3 days before humanity arrived. The Iron Pilgrim had been dead before the survival galaxy even started. This galaxy had not been built for humanity. Humanity had been dropped into the middle of something someone else had been doing for a very long time. The ancient evolution core under his deck plate suddenly made more and less sense at the same time.
Drone Alpha went down first. A cable whipped across an exposed conduit junction, sparks across the ceiling, running lights flickering to nothing. Minjun cracked the chassis cover and pocketed the targeting module.
4 minutes, one drone down.
On the chassis stamp, a 6-pointed mark inside a ring of small dots. Not human. The same alien manufacturer as the patch in his ration box. Whoever built the Rust Ark had also built the Iron Pilgrim's repair drones. 2 ships, 1 origin. Both abandoned. Both waiting.
Drone Bravo was harder, combat-capable, fitted with a laser welder that doubled as a short-range cutting beam. Minjun timed his approach to the amber light cycles, moving in the 3-second dark windows, stopping when the sensor sweep crossed the wall above his head.
When he was close enough, he lunged, wrench over his head and down across the chassis swivel joint with everything his shoulders had.
The joint cracked. The drone's targeting head swung toward him. The welder fired orange.
He threw himself flat. The beam cut the bulkhead where his chest had been. Heat rolled over his back.
He jammed the wrench in again. Twisted. The chassis swivel snapped. The head hit the floor.
Breath ragged, hand shaking. Welder mount intact. Star Eye reading it as compatible with the Rust Ark's empty weapon bay after standard refit.
A weapon. Not much against a warship. Enough against another junker.
He cut the heating pipe at the junction box before passing the parasite nest, and the soft bodies stilled by cold within 90 seconds.
In the rear cargo bay, he found the sealed locker and cracked it with a wrench in 20 seconds.
The cargo expansion module sat in a foam cradle, dense gray, the size of his fist. A faint internal pulse he could feel through his glove. Star Eye confirmed Tier 1 fusion event, compatible with ancient evolution core.
3 trips back and forth through the corridor, past silent drones and frozen crew, until the Rust Ark's cabin was packed wall to wall with salvage.
Oxygen tanks, hull plates, engine coil, ration packs, welding kit, both drone chassis stripped for parts. The damaged mining laser on his shoulder at 40 kilograms, dragging.
On the 3rd trip, Star Eye updated the microfracture status. Docking stress had accelerated the wall failure. 90 minutes until vacuum breach.
He moved faster with the laser on his shoulder and did not slow down until it hit the cabin floor with a thud that shook the whole pod.
He undocked, let the Iron Pilgrim recede behind him, found a quiet patch of dark 200 kilometers off, and cut the engine. In the silence, he ate a strip of pale yellow nutrient brick that tasted like frozen marzipan, and let his hands shake for exactly 30 seconds.
Then he opened the Star Eye panel and looked at the cargo expansion module sitting against his chest. The seam in the deck plate glowed softly when he brought the module close. Not bright, a pulse, the way a heartbeat shows through skin at the right angle.
He aligned the module against the seam. It settled into place like a key finding a lock that had been waiting a long time.
Confirm. The Rust Ark groaned. Not a small shudder, a long, deep sound that ran from the nose of the pod through the deck plate, up into his knees, and down through every bulkhead.
Cabin lights flickered. The star-eye dimmed and then brightened. The cargo expansion module sank half into the deck plate as if the metal had gone soft, the way honey goes soft in warm sun.
A pale blue line traced itself along the cabin floor, split into branches, ran up the bulkheads, into the cracked storage closet, along the engine bay, into the empty weapon mount.
The walls did not push outward. The inside of the pod simply remembered being larger than it had chosen to be, the way a folded piece of paper opens one panel at a time without anyone pulling the corners.
3 steps across became 5.
The cracked storage closet lengthened by a third, its inner fracture sealing as a hull plate lifted from the salvage pile, slid across the cabin, and welded itself flat to the wall.
Oxygen tanks rose from the floor and integrated themselves into the life support system one by one, fitting ports that had not been visible before, locking, disappearing under smooth seals.
The damaged mining laser lifted off the tank it had been leaning against. The weapon mount reached down to meet it. Laser and mount clicked together. The welder from Drone Bravo attached itself to an auxiliary slot below the main mount. Secondary armament, short-range cutting beam, operational immediately.
The basic engine coil from the Iron Pilgrim slid into the engine bay. Engine integrity restored. Bypass sealing now 68%, not 62%.
Hull plates sorted themselves around the cabin and found their slots. The cracked viewport took a thin, transparent layer along its inner surface. Integrity reinforced from 61% to 88%.
In 40 seconds, the salvage was gone. The deck plate seam was gone. The cracked storage was not cracked. The leaking wall was sealed.
The pod hummed a deeper, steadier note underneath the engine and the scrubber, a note Minjun had never heard from this ship before, because this note had never existed before.
Star I wrote the new status panel in pale blue. Hull integrity 28%. Engine 30% repaired. Oxygen generator full. Leak sealed. Mining laser installed at 12% capacity. Welder mount installed. Fuel at 19%.
Survival evaluation, poor. Upgraded from extremely poor.
Poor was still the rating. He did not care. Poor was not last.
The galactic ranking pinged. Han Minjun's name jumped from the absolute floor of a board of billions into the middle billions. Still terrible, no longer dead last. A small upward arrow beside his position.
In a board of billions, a small arrow was visible enough.
World chat erupted in the time it took him to read the panel twice. Coilbreaker posted first. The scrap lord just moved on the rank board. Did the system lag? Did somebody die in front of him?
Bonecaster screenshotted the before and after. Speculation ran in waves. Cheating, stolen talent, hidden tutorial drop.
Coilbreaker posted a follow-up, offering 2 hull plates for any combat-grade scanner within 5,000 kilometers to give him a confirmed visual on the Rust Ark's current state.
Minjun shifted 2 grid sectors and dropped his broadcast here from default visible to scanner only. Anyone who wanted to find him would have to actively scan, not just listen.
Saltlight DM'd him within seconds of the rank jump. No threat, no performance. A direct offer. 10-day nutrient supply in exchange for coordinates of any ownerless wreck within 5,000 kilometers. Discreet. Payment upfront. Will respect refusal.
He filed her under real and credible, then kept reading.
3 more DMs arrived in quick succession.
Inkwell, the research vessel captain from the regional thread, offered a salvage partnership on wreck recovery if his scanner tier matched what the rank movement suggested. Polite, professional, like an academic cover letter. Filed under premature.
Greyflint, reading as mid-tier combat frigate, offered 20% above market rate for any rare salvage, no questions asked. Star Eye read the handle as sub-grade pirate in friendly tone, filed under bait.
And then Coilbreaker himself, abandoning the public broadcast for a private hail. 2 lines. Name a price for whatever you found.
I have hull plates, fuel cells, and 3 combat-grade scanner upgrades. Trade with me before someone with worse manners finds you."
The man who had mocked him publicly for hours was now privately offering to buy. The contrast taught him everything he needed to know about how the loud handles in this region actually operated.
Public mockery was crowd control. Private offers were where the real transactions happened.
Star-Eyed tagged Coilbreaker's offer as high-probability bait. He did not reply.
Old Pilot sent a DM next. 1 sentence. "Good work, kid. Stay quiet. Move grids. Don't respond to broadcast scan requests. If you want a contact list, reply with 1 word."
He replied with 1 word.
Yes.
Old Pilot's response came back in 4 seconds. "Filed. Contact saved. If you ever need a tactical read, ping. I don't work for credits. I work because somebody helped me on my first day too."
Then, almost as an afterthought, 3 words tucked into the close of the message. "Watch for Choy Dohun's pack signature. Triple coil exhaust read. Star will catch them."
Star. Not ship panel. Not standard scanner. Star.
Minjun's hands stayed very still on the panel.
Old Pilot had just used the name of his private system without being told.
He filed the handle under priority contact, trust but verify, and closed the DM.
The next alert came from Star-Eye, not World Chack.
Passive proximity scan detected. Origin, hostile signature. Triple coil exhaust. 3 ships. Range 2,400 kilometers off. Approach vector aligned with rust arc current position.
Choy Dohun's pack. Pack formation. 3 combat-capable ships. All hostile. 20 minutes out. And then the private comm chimed.
The voice that came through was male, mid-20s, calm and warm. The kind of warmth that meant the opposite of warmth.
"Scrap Lord," the voice said. "Choy Dohun here. I see you finally moved on the rank board. Congratulations. Most of the floor is dead by now." Minjun did not speak. Star-Eye was already running beneath the conversation.
The pale blue panel hung in his left visual, soft enough to read without looking away from the cockpit window. 3 signatures, 1 lead, 2 backup. Wide arc, 1 above the ecliptic, 1 below. Lazy enough to suggest Choy Dohun had run this exact pinch 100 times.
"We should talk," Choy Dohun continued. "The region is full of less polite handles. Vermilion, Coilbreaker. Neither of them would offer you a conversation. I'm offering one. Tell me how you climbed, and we let you keep what you climbed with." His fuel gauge read 15%. Mining laser at 12%. Welder mount online, short range only. No shield. Hull at 28. 3 ships incoming. 20 minutes.
Star-Eye wrote the probability breakdown without being asked. Clean survival with current armament, under 20%. Evasion only, 10 to 15%. Negotiation, indeterminate. Insufficient leverage at current ranking.
So that was the math. Fight and maybe live. Run and probably die. Negotiate and definitely lose whatever Choy Dohun decided he wanted.
He kept his voice flat. A trick of the salvage, he told the pirate. Old wreck, cheap fuse, lucky hit on the rank table.
Choy Dohun laughed. He thought that stalling was fear. Half of that read was correct.
The other half he could not see.
Star-Eye was already painting the approach arc. Choy Dohun's combat scout had to turn to dock. When it turned, the port side fuel line would pass through a clean, angular window for a count of 3 seconds.
The line had been patched but never properly sealed, the kind of patch that never went on because pirates always believed the next score would cover the last hole. Star highlighted the seam in thin yellow. Angle marked. Distance marked. A moment marked. 1 shot. Mining laser at 12% capacity. 1 capacitor, dumpable in a single burst. If the beam followed that line at the precise vector, the fuel line would rupture along its length.
Choy Dohun was still talking. He wanted the data core. He wanted the rest of the horde. He would leave the pod and a fuel cell and the right to keep flying.
the standard pirate gift that cost them nothing because they took everything else first.
"So talk to me," the pirate said, voice slower now. "What else did you fuse?" Silence sat for a count. The firing readout under the console glowed steady. Minjun's fingers rested on the cover plate over the trigger.
"I'll show you," he said. "You dock, I open one cargo bay. You walk in, you see. We talk numbers."
Choy Dohun liked that. His crew murmured in the background. Someone laughed softly. The pirate thought he had him.
He set his ship onto a docking arc.
Star-Eye began a quiet countdown. Approach in 50 seconds. Rotation begins at 35. Window opens at 32. Closes at 29.
3 seconds of clean scene.
Choy Dohun kept talking, his voice easy, already describing how the data core would go into the boarding lock, already dividing the hoard in his head before he had touched any of it.
Agreeable noises rose from Minjun's throat at the right beats. His eyes never left the seam.
35 seconds. The scout's rotation began. The yellow line on Star-Eye bloomed wider.
32. Window open. The seam was exposed.
29.
His finger pressed the firing trigger. The mining laser dumped its single capacitor. Light crossed the gap in a thin beam that followed exactly the line Star-Eye had drawn. The seam absorbed the hit. The port side fuel line flashed white at the puncture point and ruptured along its length. Fuel ignited. Secondary detonation bloomed inside the port aft compartment. The shield generator chain failed in a soft cascade, and the combat scout lurched sideways out of its rotation.
Choy Dohun's voice on the comm choked mid-laugh into a sound Minjun had never heard from a pirate before. Small, high, half disbelief, half real fear.
His hand left the trigger and went to the maneuvering controls. Rust Ark aborted the docking arc and pushed hard toward the Iron Pilgrim wreck behind him.
The broken bulk of the Iron Pilgrim hung in the void like a half-collapsed cathedral. Behind it sat the drift shadow Star-Eye had marked 10 minutes ago as a cover position.
The pod slid into the shadow with engine power at 30%. In the new silence after the comm cut, he could hear his own breathing, a slow, even pull.
This is the morning, he thought. The galaxy gave me an empty hand, and Star-Eye taught me where to put it.
Choy Dohun's ship hung dead stick in the dark, port side burning, life support cutting cabin by cabin. The two backup scouts on the wide arc held. Star-Eye painted their hesitation in soft amber.
They had not seen the kill come from a scrap pod. The math they had brought to this pinch had just been broken in front of them.
Vermilion's voice opened on regional, older than expected, sharp, careful. Diane, status report position. He said it twice. Choy Dohun did not answer.
Star, I read Choy Dohun's escape pod prepping for ejection. Life support on the dead scout guttering towards 0. 3 crew still inside, breathing through failing breathers.
The two backup scouts held, neither committed to closing, both waiting on Vermilion's next order.
Inside the drift shadow, Minjun's breath rolled slow. The decision about what came next was already forming before he reached for the comm panel. He took the regional broadcast channel for the first time as Scrap Lord. The voice that came out of his throat was flatter than expected, older than his pilot license.
Pirate pack lead Choy Dohun's ship is dead stick at this coordinate, he said.
If the two trailing scouts close to firing range, they will receive identical treatment. No second warning.
The regional went quiet for one long breath. Then it went loud.
Greyflint posted laughing emojis. Saltlight posted nothing. Inkwell posted a single line. Smart kid.
Vermilion did not post in the regional. His private channel to Rust Arc closed from his side.
The two backup scouts held for 30 seconds, then both peeled off, one above the ecliptic, one below, accelerating outward into deeper space.
Retreat confirmed.
Choy Dohun's escape pod blew its bolts 10 seconds later and tumbled out of the dead scout, a small metal seed spinning slow across the void, life support and the yellow band. His hand rested on the comm panel. A clean kill would have cost him nothing. The mining laser was empty anyway, but that was not why he did not press the trigger again.
A pirate broken and drifting was worth more wounded than dead. Choy Dohun had a name above him. Beyond that name sat a contract in a data core on the dead scout he was about to board.
The pirate alive in a tumbling pod with 10 hours of air was a man who would trade everything he knew about that name for one more day.
This galaxy was a long graveyard for people who finished kills too soon.
Course set for the dead scout. Rust Arc's engines pushed gently out of the drift shadow.
The Iron Pilgrim's broken ribs slid past on either side, a brief tunnel of ruined metal, and then the open void returned.
Rust Arc closed on Choy Dohun's combat scout at half power.
I painted the hole from 20 meters out. 3 crew signatures still alive inside boarding suits. Cabin pressure equalized with the void through a seam crack. Port compartment still smoldering red.
Magnetic dock clamps engaged along the scout's intact starboard panel.
Through the boarding tube, the interior of the pirate ship smelled like burnt plastic even through the suit's filtration. Bulkheads scorched. 2 crew slumped in the cockpit, breathers on but past saturation. A third in the corridor, face down, helmet on.
Star Eye marked all 3 as recoverable, though not by him at this hour.
He would leave the emergency beacon running on a delay. Vermilion's network would pull them when they got brave again, and 3 pirates would live to remember Scraplord by name.
A witness was worth more than a corpse. Old Pilot had taught him that, in a DM he had not yet answered.
In the cargo hold, he found what he had come for. 4 fuel cells in a steel cradle, indicator light still burning green despite the dead ship. A B-rank laser turret in a maintenance cradle with mount fittings packed beside it. 6 ration packs sealed in a locker. A small shield generator, Tier 1, with roughly 40 cycles left.
And in the pirate captain's cabin, behind a manual lock the welding cutter handled in 20 seconds, a data core with its indicator light still amber. Contents intact.
2 trips across the docking tube. Back on Rust Arc with the boarding tube retracted and the dead scout drifting on a slow vector toward open void.
In the cockpit, he laid the salvage out and let Star Eye scan each piece.
The pirate captain's data core went first. Star Eye pulled layer after layer from the encrypted slots. 60 days of raid records, crew rosters, salvage manifests.
The interesting layer sat underneath. A contract record. Choy Dohun's name linked upward to a handle, Star Eye, partially identified as M. De-young, recruiting officer, paid contract.
The contract specified any handle showing anomalous rank jumps in the regional bottom tier was to be flagged and reported. Dead or alive, but preferably alive.
So that was why he had come. Choy Dohun had not been running a random pinch. He had been hunting bottom-rank anomalies for someone above him. Now his ship was dead, and M. De-young had a hole in his hunting party. That hole had Minjun's name on it. Filing M. De-young under future threat. The data core went into secure storage. The information inside it was more dangerous than any weapon in his cargo bay. Fusion next. 4 fuel cells onto the tray. The ancient evolution core pulled them in directly. Fuel read 90% of full reserve. The pod had not flown on this much fuel since the moment it launched. B-rank laser turrets, mount fittings, welding cutter handling the 2 adjustments.
Power feed routing through the existing capacitor with a small adapter, the core fused into place.
Weapon power reading 35%. The first real gun this pod had ever carried.
Shield generator next. Tier 1 unit along the port side. Ancient Evolution Core rewrote the power routing to share capacitor load with the turret.
Shield reading 12%. Port side only. Not full coverage. Enough to absorb a glancing shot at close range. The first shield this pod had ever worn.
Engine fragment last, the one clean piece from the Scout. The core fused it to the existing coil, rewrote the burn profile. Engine reading 42%. Acceleration sharper. Burn cleaner. The pod felt different through the deck plates the moment the fuse completed. A tighter hum, a quicker settle. Something that had not existed in this ship before the morning now lived inside it.
Star ran the full self-scan and wrote the new status in pale blue. Hull, 38%. Engine, 42. Weapon power, 35. Shield, 12% port side. Oxygen, full. Cargo bay, 60%. Fuel, 90%.
The galactic ranking pinged again. Scraplord passed 3 more handles on the board. Still in the lower range by any measure. No longer dead. No longer dying.
A small blue prompt rolled across his vision. Tier 2 upgrade available. Proximity scan extension unlocked. Crew compartment activation available. Rust Ark's hull capacity is sufficient for 1 additional crew slot.
The pod had been built for 2. The previous owner had flown alone. That second slot had always been there.
Outside the cockpit window, Choy Dohun's escape pod tumbled in the dark, with its life support ticking at 18%. The pirate inside had not broadcast. Either he was hoping someone would find him, or he had already decided what he would trade when they did.
Coil Breaker's handle appeared in the regional. The famous captain who had mocked him in World Chat went quiet for 30 seconds with a typing indicator. Then the typing indicator stopped, and a single line posted. Scraplord. Private channel.
No insult. No performance for the audience. Just an address.
Minjun opened the chow.
The voice that came through was older than he expected. Careful cadence. "I owe you an apology, Scraplord," Coil Breaker said. "Your handle I read wrong."
A small breath. I won't insult you in the regional again. If you're hiring outriders, my ship is for hire. Standard rates. Discretion guaranteed. The man who had mocked him at dawn was offering his sword by afternoon.
Filed under careful. The first reputation flip of the day.
He closed the channel, set a course 3 jumps east toward a drift zone old pilot had pointed at through implication, and let the rest arc find its stride in the open void.
The new engine drank a fraction of what the old coil had drunk. Fuel read steady at 88% after the first burn. Behind him, the dead Scout drifted. The Iron Pilgrim wreck receded.
A morning that had started with 3 pirate ships and a 12% mining laser was ending with a B-rank turret, a small shield, 90% fuel, and a hoarded data core that he would need to handle with significant care. The evening was his. The next problem was already forming on the horizon.
3 jumps east took 11 minutes at the new burn profile. The drift zone resolved on the navigation panel as a loose cluster of small handles, brokers, miners, salvagers.
No pirate pack signatures in the regional log for the past 4 days. A quiet kind of zone where a small handle could park without being pinched.
While the burn ran, Star Eye kept unpacking the pirate captain's data core, a separate operations file. Inside, 11 coordinates, each tagged as a recruitment target, bottom-rank anomalies in M. Dayong's network.
His own coordinate from that morning was the 12th, added by Choy Dohun just before the comm opened.
11 other handles had done what he had done. Some alive, others already pinched or recruited.
Dustline was on the list. The panicking mining ship from the regional thread, the one that sounded 12 years old, had quietly jumped rank, and someone had noticed. Coil Breaker was also on the list, which meant Coil Breaker either knew or would soon.
The apology on the private channel may not have been only respect.
Some of it could be a man looking for an ally before his own pinch arrived.
Im Dae-young was running an organized recruitment of anomaly handles, and Choy Dohun had been one of his hunters. Now Choy Dohun was broken and drifting, and a man above him had lost a hunter and gained a problem.
The problem had Minjun's name on it.
Star. I rolled a new growth prompt at the edge of his visual. Combat trigger growth at 92%. Salvage trigger growth at 60%. Information trigger growth opening at 8%.
A third growth path. Reading the data core was feeding the system the way firing the laser had fed it. The system was hungry for action and for reading both.
Old Pilot's private trade channel had an invite link attached. Side broker hub. 24 handles. No pirate pack signatures within 7 jumps. Reputation weighted. Old Pilot vouching for his entry as a new member.
His finger tapped accept. The hub opened in a private layer below the regional. Inside, a small trade ticker scrolled across the top. Nutrient paste for fuel coordinates. Whole plates for water bottles. Engine fragments for navigation charts.
Saltlight was already in the hub. She pinged him the moment his handle lit up in the member list. Nutrient packs in exchange for coordinates of any wreck he had already cleared. Not live wrecks, cleared. A trader who dealt in cleared coordinates was a trader who avoided being targeted by the people who cleared them. The Iron Pilgrim's location was already loose in the regional as a kill site. Selling the precise coordinate to Saltlight cost him nothing real and earned him 6 nutrient paste packs. The trade closed in 30 seconds. 6 packs arrived via cargo launch from her ship at the edge of the hub.
Old Pilot pinged privately while the drone retreated. A longer message this time. An offer for a scan job. An alien beacon at coordinate 734, Mark 8, in the Eastern Drift.
The Old Pilot had wanted a star eye read on that beacon for 2 years and had never had the talent to get it. His payment was a contact route and a bonus of 2 ration packs and 1 water bottle. Old Pilot used the words star eye again in a private DM, knowing exactly what to call it. Minjun accepted the trade and filed the beacon as a waypoint. Tomorrow's work. Tonight's work was closer. Inkwell pinged next, a longer message. Partnership on a defended trade route, 3 drift zones, 10 days a cycle, 60-40 split in Inkwell's favor, protection from Inkwell's ship.
He filed the handle under premature. 60-40 was hungry. The offer came too soon after his kill. Inkwell was trying to lock him into a junior position before he understood his own leverage.
His reply was 2 lines. Appreciate the offer, not ready to commit until the current run stabilizes. Check back in a week. Inkwell did not push back. A real partner would have understood, and opportunist would have pushed. The silence landed in the middle. Useful information filed.
Gray Flint's threats arrived next. Long, ugly, half-spelled. Revenge for Choy Dohun, hunted across every regional until he ran out of fuel. The standard pirate threat script, offered this time on private DM to get a reply timestamp, to read his emotional state.
His reply was nothing. The DM closed unread.
Dustline pinged privately, asking the same question he had been asking publicly. How does anyone survive without fuel? Real panic, not staged. The handle signature confirmed damage across 2 systems. No shield, nearly empty.
Helping Dustline cost him nothing and earned a debt from a handle Im Dae-young had already flagged as an anomaly. Potential ally. Potential threat. Both.
He sent the handle a small, clean piece of intel. A fuel asteroid Saltlight had mentioned. Quiet vector approach from the north. No pirate pack stands logged nearby for 48 hours.
The price was 1 navigation chart of Dustline's home regional. Dustline accepted in 10 seconds. The chart arrived. Star Eye read it and found 3 small wrecks previously unknown to him. 2 went on to his salvage queue immediately.
He set a small public posting in the side broker hub. Scrap lords selling safe route hints, wreck danger ratings, salvage advice, pricing in fuel cells, water bottles, ration packs, or coordinates of equivalent value. Discretion guaranteed.
11 inquiries arrived in the first 90 seconds.
Hub members were hungry for clean intel from a handle who had just demonstrated he read the field accurately. Star Eye stayed hidden under every transaction. What he sold were conclusions, not methods. The math stayed inside the pod.
Trades landed in steady rhythm across the next 40 minutes. Safe route hints for engine coils, danger ratings for ration packs, monster weakness intel for weapon parts that Star Eye read as useful for a future turret upgrade. His inventory climbed visibly. 9 fuel cells, 8 water bottles, 12 ration packs, 4 hull plates in reserve, 3 engine fragments, navigation charts from 2 new regions.
Old Pilot sent 3 words on a private ping. Smart, fast, careful.
The compliment was rare from a handle as old as he was. It also functioned as a warning.
He kept working.
Coilbreaker pinged privately for the second time. Not a higher conversation. Intel. A pirate pack scout had been tasked specifically to his regional grid, funded by the same recruiting officer Choy Dohun had been working for.
The scout's brief was to mark, not attack, track Scrap Lord across 72 hours, log trades, log movements, log contacts.
Payment for the intel? 1 safe route hint for Coilbreaker's next 2 cycles. The trade closed. The channel closed.
Minjun's hand sat on the console for a long beat. The Watcher was already in his regional. Dayoung's morning kill had bought him an observer, and the observer was parked somewhere inside his scanner range, eating signal data, logging cargo launches, reading the shape of every trade.
Star opened a passive scan field across all 12 jumps within range. The scan ran in the background, ate no resource, cost no fuel. His system would find the Watcher. It would find him before he found the answers Dayoung was paying him to deliver.
While the passive scan ran, more trades landed. Redline, Brightspar, Low Tide, Slatewing. The hub members were now referring him forward by handle. Old Pilot sat in the hub like a quiet patron, posting almost nothing publicly, routing verified buyers to him through the private channel.
His trust score inside the hub climbed with every trade. Coilbreaker posted a single line in the regional where his mockery used to live. Scrap Lord trades clean. No apology, no explanation. A public reputation flip from one of the region's recognized A-tier captains, dropped without theater. Star Eye read the chat reaction across 60 seconds. Mockery handles went quiet. 2 prior critics deleted their old posts. New trust accrued to Scrap Lord by the second. 1 safe route hint had bought him 10 times its value in regional reputation.
So this was what an alliance looked like at the start.
Then Vermilion posted on World Chat 7 words. Pirate Pack does not forget.
Short, restrained, designed to chill rather than threaten openly.
Most regional handles read it as general warning. He read it as a message aimed specifically at him. Star Eye added Vermilion to the active threat tracker. The information war had not just started, it had been running since the moment he fired.
60 minutes after parking at the edge of the drift zone, the passive scan found what Coilbreaker had confirmed existed.
A faint signature at the outer edge of the 10-jump radius, behind a small dust cluster. Long-range scout, idle drift profile, no active broadcast.
Pirate Pack pattern. The Watcher was here.
His breath stayed even. He did not move. The Watcher's brief was observation, non-engagement, exactly as reported. Every minute the scout sat in passive observation was a minute Star Eye learned the scout's pattern. Information, trigger growth, 55%. Counter-surveillance, accelerated the read. Coilbreaker pinged privately to confirm the Watcher's arrival from his own sources. Then he asked whether Minjun had eyes on the scout. 1-word reply, yes. Coilbreaker thanked him and closed the channel. The relationship was forming piece by piece. He paid in safe route hints. Coilbreaker paid in intelligence. The next price would be higher. The next trade would be heavier. An alliance shape was coming into focus. Old Pilot pinged again. He asked Minjun to perform the alien beacon scan tonight rather than tomorrow. A buyer was ready who needed the read within 12 hours.
The bonus was 2 ration packs and 1 water bottle on top of the standard contact route.
Star Eye ran the math. The eastern drift was empty of pirate pack signatures. The watcher behind the dust cluster could not follow without giving up his position. A clean run.
He accepted, prepped Rustark for departure, activated a deception layer across the navigation log, painting the route as ambiguous, suggesting 3 possible destinations of equal plausibility.
The eastern drift opened up on the other side of 2 jumps. The alien beacon sat at coordinate 734 Mark 8, a small object broadcasting on a frequency nobody in the regional had decoded in 2 years.
Prior attempts at scanning it had triggered a weapon response from a dormant defense system. Standard scan resolution hit the threshold like a blunt edge against a closed door.
Star Eye's precision was the key.
Rustark drifted toward the beacon at quarter power, engines cooled. Star Eye mapped the broadcast pattern. The beacon's protocol resolved in 2 minutes, its content in 3.
The defense system never triggered. Star Eye's scan was read by the beacon as a peer-level inquiry rather than an intrusion.
The beacon's content, a star chart fragment from before the collapse of a region 3 regional grids away. Inside, 17 waypoints, 6 tagged as resource-rich, 3 carrying icons Star Eye did not yet have decoded.
The trade closed through Old Pilot as broker. 2 ration packs and 1 water bottle arrived via relay drop.
The trade also unlocked the second growth path. Information trigger jumped to 70%. Star Eye hit level 2 threshold mid-scan. Proximity scan extended from 10 jumps to 15. Passive surveillance gained a new feature, signature mimicry detection, flagging handles whose declared profile did not match their behavior pattern. A useful tool. Filed. Pulling out of the eastern drift, he set Rustark back toward the side broker hub on a slow vector. The watcher read the return through the regional log and stayed in passive observation, deception layer still active. M. Dayong's data feed registered the eastern run as ambiguous.
This was the rhythm now. Move, scan, sell, return. Hide the precise motion. Run the information war on the motion the watcher could not fully read.
Halfway through the return jump, a new DM landed.
Handle, Park Eugene. Ship class, research vessel. Com protocol, clean, professional.
The message opened directly. Scrap Lord, this is Park Eugene. I am trapped near an alien drone field at coordinate 117 Mark 3. My engines are damaged from a prior encounter and cannot move without triggering the field's hostile threshold.
She had read the regional and identified him as the only handle within range with both the talent profile and the demonstrated combat reliability to attempt extraction.
Her offer, full future trade rights to her research outputs, plus the medicine she was carrying on board.
The compound she named was exactly the one the pirate captain's data core had flagged as the next tier upgrade material for Rustark's whole regeneration package.
Star Eye ran her signature, the drone field's formation pattern, the math of the route between his current position and hers.
5 jumps. The drone field was a known no-go zone, logged across 3 regional databases. Prior extraction attempts had failed because the drones responded to standard engine signatures with kinetic strikes that overwhelmed standard shields.
Star Eye read the drone sweep pattern. Adaptive, algorithmic, capable of learning. Standard handles could not read it because the variance defeated standard scan resolution.
Star Eye at level 2 read the variance the way a fisherman reads water. The drones could be predicted 3 sweeps in advance. Each sweep took 90 seconds. Inside each window, a 30-second corridor along the field's northern arc, where drone density dipped to a level the hull and shield could survive.
Approach through the northern corridor during Sweep Window 3's transition. Burn through Sweep Window 4 before the field's adaptive layer recognized the extraction pattern.
Fuel cost high. Shield absorbing at minimum 1 minor strike. Turret firing on 3 to 5 drones. After the run, ammunition depleted. Shield at 0. Fuel at 26%.
Survivable. Doable.
But the cost included something beyond fuel and ammunition. An exposed route that the watcher behind the dust cluster would read in real time, a clean window for Im Dae-young's network to log his exact destination.
A second alert pinged before he finished considering. The alien drone field had begun a slow sweep toward Park Eugene's hull. 45 minutes until first contact.
After that, extraction was impossible.
His hand went to the comm. The choice in front of him was his alone.
A no kept him safe. A no kept a horde secure and the deception layer clean. A no let a scientist die in a drone field with a vial of medicine he would never see.
A yes burned 60% of his fuel. A yes risked the only shield he had. A yes exposed his route to the Watcher in real time.
Star-Eye ran the cost-benefit one more time. Then the system went quiet and waited.
Old pilot pinged. 2 lines. Park Eugene is real. She lost her brother to a pirate pack raid last cycle. Treat her well. No payment request, no trade, just information.
Coil breaker pinged second. If you go, I'll pull the watch's attention with a fake burn on my end. Costs you nothing.
He was offering a free distraction. Coil breaker was now investing in the alliance, not just trading in it.
The relationship had moved from cautious exchange to active cooperation in the span of 3 hours.
His finger hovered over the reply field. The clock was at 45 minutes and counting.
I did not stay quiet long. A new alert rolled in. Pale red.
The passive scan at level 2 had registered movement at the edge of the 15 jump radius, a second hostile signature entering the regional.
Combat Scout, pirate pack pattern, similar class to Choy Dohun's but smaller and faster, not the watcher behind the dust cluster. That one was still parked and still observing.
A second pirate pack asset. And the second asset was moving. I read the vector. Approach trajectory toward his current coordinate. Speed, moderate, not aggressive. The kind of speed that said, I want to be seen, rather than I want to surprise.
A pressure piece, not a strike. Im Dae-young wanted him to know he was being squeezed. Timer rolling in pale blue. 8 hours until the second scout reached his current coordinate at present speed. So he had 8 hours to be somewhere else. The drone field extraction would take 3 hours round trip. 3 hours plus recovery plus deception reset equaled roughly 5 hours of exposed window. The math closed, barely, with Coil Breaker's fake burn pulling early attention and Old Pilot's network covering the return.
And the second scout's arrival had just changed the calculus of staying parked. A no kept him at a fixed coordinate. At a fixed coordinate, the second scout would find him in 8 hours.
A yes made him a vector. A vector had to be chased rather than confirmed.
Staying was no longer the safe option.
He opened the reply field and typed 2 characters. In. Park Eugene's response came back in seconds. Coordinates confirmed, sending approach data. 30 seconds later, a small compressed packet arrived. The scan data her team had been running on the drone field from inside it.
2 scientists working the problem from the inside and Star-Eye working it from the outside. The combined read was sharper than either had been alone.
Coil Breaker's fake burn launched 2 minutes later, a bright, clean signature sweeping east across the regional. The watcher behind the dust cluster shifted bearing by 4 degrees to track it. 4 degrees was not much, but it was 4 degrees away from Minjun's outbound vector.
Rust Ark's engines lit at half power. The pod angled southwest on a careful course, 5 jumps to coordinate 117 Mark III.
Fuel taking down from 86%. Timer at 38 minutes on Park Eugene's clock.
The approach to the drone field was visible from 2 jumps out, a spreading cloud of dark objects in loose formation. No lights, no broadcasts, no heat signatures at the level a standard scanner would read.
On Star Eye, they painted the void like a slow storm.
Park Eugene's research vessel sat at the center of the field, a clean, mid-sized ship with its engine housing cracked along one side, a kinetic strike scar still raw at the seam.
3 crew on the manifest, all civilian. 2 of them still running scans on the drones from inside the damaged ship, sending live data to his panel through the compressed packet link.
She had not stopped working. In dying time, scientists keep working.
Star Eye tracked the field and confirmed the northern corridor. 30 seconds of viable passage during Sweep Window 3's transition. His engines needed to hit the corridor at exactly 12% thrust to avoid triggering the drone field's kinetic threshold.
Too fast, and the drones registered a combat signature. Too slow, and the passage closed before he cleared it.
12%, the number his previous owner's note had warned him against, exceeded on the old bypass. The new engine cleared 12% with room to spare.
Sweep Window 3 opened. The corridor appeared on Star Eye in pale blue, a narrow slot between 2 drone clusters rotating away from each other for exactly 30 seconds.
He moved.
12% thrust. Rust arc sliding through the corridor with its hull reading a heat signature that Star Eye had tuned to pass below the field's detection floor. 15 seconds in, one drone tilted toward him. Star Eye flagged it. The drone's sensor pass grazed the rust arc's nose and slid off without triggering.
20 seconds in, the corridor began closing. He was through the first ring.
Park Eugene's research vessel was 200 meters off when the second ring began its sweep.
Window 4, the burnout window. 30 seconds to reach her ship, magnetic clamp, and begin extraction before the field's adaptive layer recognized the path.
He pushed to 30%. The drones reacted. 2 kinetic strikes hit the port side in quick succession, each one absorbed by the small shield in a flash of discharged energy that Star Eye painted white on the threat display. Shield dropped to 3% after the first, to 0 after the second. The third strike, he had to dodge.
Maneuvering hard to starboard, he let the rust arc's new engine do what it had not been able to do 12 hours ago, responding fast, cutting against the pod's own momentum, sliding the stern out of the strike path.
The kinetic round clipped the very tail of the pod and rang through the hull like a struck bell.
His uncle's voice in his head. Ticking is fine. Ringing is bad. Listen for the ring.
The turret fired on 3 drones in the burnout window, 1 burst each, clean enough that 2 of the 3 went dark, the third drifting at reduced capacity.
Ammunition depleted.
Magnetic clamp engaged against Park Eugene's starboard docking ring.
Seal pressure climbed. Locked at green.
Inside the research vessel's airlock, Park Eugene was already waiting.
She was smaller than the voice had implied. Late 20s, maybe. Short-cropped hair still static from the suit helmet she had just removed. Eyes that moved the way a scientist's eyes move, reading everything twice before deciding once.
Behind her, 2 crew members at their stations were still running field analysis, still working.
She handed him the medicine vial before he had said a word.
The compound sat in a sealed medical container, small enough to fit in his chest pocket. Dense, like the cargo expansion module had been. A faint internal pulse he could feel through the case.
He pocketed it. She read the gesture correctly.
"We need to leave immediately," she said. "Window 4 is collapsing."
The extraction route back out of the field was not the same corridor he had used to enter. Star Eye had already mapped a second corridor, Sweep Window 5, opening in 4 minutes along the field's southern arc.
He ran her and her 2 crew members through the boarding tube to rust arc in 90 seconds. Research vessel sealed and tethered on a short cable behind the pod, moving with it rather than under its own power.
The tether added drag. The 5-jump return would take longer. The fuel cost climbed by 8% against initial estimates.
Shield was gone, Ammunition was gone. Hull had taken one ring strike on the stern.
He sat in the pilot seat and brought up Star Eye in full view.
Sweep window 5 opened. He moved.
The exit corridor was wider than the entrance, enough for the tethered vessel to pass if he held his angle precise to within 1 degree of Star Eye's marked line.
He held the angle.
One drone broke from its sweep pattern and approached along the southern arc, adaptive layer catching the shape of the extraction too late. Star Eye flagged it. He did not fire. Nothing left to fire with.
Instead, he held course. The drone reached a range of 40 meters, sensor sweep crossing the Rust Ark's hull twice, and then the field's rotation pulled it back into the sweep pattern before it could escalate to kinetic response.
40 meters. An arm's length by any measurement that mattered. Then the exit corridor widened further, and the stars beyond it were clean and open, and the drone field was behind him.
Park Eugene was standing at the cabin threshold, one hand on the doorframe.
Her 2 crew members were already running data capture on the drone field behavior they had just survived. Still working.
You used the northern entry and the southern exit, she said. The sweep rotation runs asymmetric on the southern arc. Standard extraction logic always uses the same corridor entry and exit. You switched.
He did not explain how he had known. The Star Eye stayed where it was, behind his eyes, reading the field while she read him.
You're not a standard handle, she said.
He said course for the side broker hub and said nothing.
The return journey took 14 minutes at the reduced speed of the tether. Fuel dropped to 22%. Hull showing the stern strike as a thin fracture along the rear plate. Nothing critical, patchable with hull plate from the reserve.
Star Eye ran a continuous scan on the regional around him. The watcher behind the dust cluster had not moved. Coil breaker's fake burn had kept him occupied for nearly the full extraction window. The second scout, the pressure piece, was still on its inbound vector, 7 hours and 20 minutes away. Enough time. Park Eugene sat in the co-pilot position and worked on a portable panel, pulling the field data her crew had sent during the extraction and running it against a reference database that Star Eye rated as alien materials classification. Her research database was 3 times the size of anything he had seen in the regional hub's combined catalog. She had been collecting it for longer than the survival galaxy had existed.
The previous owner of the Rust Ark, whoever they were, had left a note, a patch, a fuel cell, and a signpost pointing toward an ancient evolution core. Park Eugene was the next signpost.
She was also the most dangerous piece of information he now carried, because anyone who knew she was on board would understand that he had access to alien materials analysis.
An alien materials analysis in this galaxy was worth more than any single weapon mount.
They reached the side broker hub's outer boundary, and he cut the engine. The hub's familiar cluster of small handles resolved on Star Eye in pale blue. Old Pilot pinged the moment his handle appeared at the edge of the hub. 3 words. Good. She safe?
2 words back. Yes. Both. Old Pilot did not reply. The channel sat quiet for a moment. Then a single file arrived. No message attached. A navigation chart of a region 2 grids east, annotated in the same careful handwriting style as the notes he sent through the hub. Unsigned, unasked for.
He filed it. The Old Pilot economy ran on a currency older than fuel cells.
Park Eugene looked at his nav panel while he processed Old Pilot's chart. She read the star chart fragment from the alien beacon scan, still marked in pale blue from the Eastern Drift run.
She went very still.
3 of the icons you have not decoded, she said. I have the reference key.
She opened her own panel and brought up a match table. The 3 icons resolved: Ancient Fleet Anchorage, Dead Signal Zone, and Pre-Collapse Survey Marker.
The 17 waypoints from the beacon scan were not random resource points. They were a logistics chain. Someone had mapped supply routes across this region before the collapse of whatever civilization had owned it. And the fleet anchorage was active. Not in the sense of a living crew, active in the sense of ships still parked there, sealed under the dead signal, waiting for a claimant who had never arrived. His hand stayed on the panel. Outside the cockpit window, The drift zone hung in the regional dark. Dead ships from civilizations older than humanity, parked under a sealed signal, waiting.
The ancient evolution core under his deck plate had been built by the same manufacturer as the drones in the Iron Pilgrim. The patch in his ration box bore the same mark. The repair drones bore the same mark.
All of it pointed toward one origin, one civilization that had seeded the region with ships and tools and data, then vanished.
And somewhere in the dead signal zone, at the end of the beacon's chain, a fleet sat in the dark, with nobody left to claim it.
Nobody except whoever arrived there first.
He was not going there tonight. Tonight, he was a handle with 22% fuel, no ammunition, no shield, and 3 passengers he had not planned for.
But the waypoint was marked on his panel now, in a color he had not used before. Not a salvage queue color, not a threat tracker color.
A destination color.
Park Eugene was quiet for a moment, then asked about the second scout on the inbound vector. She had read the threat display when she sat in the co-pilot seat.
6 hours and 40 minutes, he told her.
She nodded. She pulled up a small communications panel on her portable device and opened a direct channel to a handle he had not yet seen in the regional.
My research network, she said. I have 3 contacts within range. They are not combat assets. What they are is mobile and discreet.
3 small signatures appeared at the edge of Star Eye's scan field. Research-class vessels. 2 with medical bay capacity. 1 with a full alien materials processing lab.
If Im Daeong was watching the regional for bottom-rank anomalies, he was about to find that Scrap Lord had acquired 3 research vessels worth of sensor coverage that did not appear on the public rank board as combat threats.
They were not combat threats. They were eyes. And in this galaxy, eyes were the thing that made everything else possible.
Minjun opened a trade channel with Park Eugene's contacts. The first researcher, a handle named Morrow, had been mapping the alien drone field from outside for 11 days. She had the field's full behavioral record. 30 seconds of reading it against Star Eye's scan confirmed what Park Eugene had suspected. The drones were not just adaptive. They were guarding something at the field's center.
Something that had not been there when the field first activated. Something that had arrived recently.
Star Eye drew the implication in pale text under the field map. Sealed cargo unit, automated, unknown class. Arrival consistent with pirate pack drop-off 3 days ago.
A pirate pack had dropped something inside an alien drone field and walked away. The field's defense system had locked around it automatically.
Im Daeong's network had been seeding the region with more than hunters.
Minjun closed the field data file and opened his DM panel. The count of unread messages had climbed to 41.
He did not read all 41. He sorted by Star Eye's trust score and worked through the top tier first.
Old Pilot had sent a longer message in the interval while he was in the field, a tactical read on Im Daeong's organizational structure, written in the careful shorthand of someone who had been watching the man for a long time.
Im Daeong ran a 3-layer structure. Outer layer, pirate hunters, like Choy Dohun, working on contract, expendable. Middle layer, intelligence scouts, like the watcher behind the dust cluster, more valuable, kept at distance. Inner layer, unknown, never visible in the regional public channels.
Old Pilot's note ended with a single line. The inner layer is why I am still alive. I never let them identify me.
Minjun read it twice.
Old Pilot had been running in this regional long enough to study Im Daeong, avoid Im Daeong's inner layer, and survive. He had reached out to a bottom-rank pod on launch day. He had known what to call the Star Eye before being told. He had vouched for Minjun's entry to the side broker hub.
The logic that had chosen him through Old Pilot had reasons that were becoming clearer by the hour.
A new alert rolled across his panel. Not a DM, a system-level notification from Star Eye.
The ancient evolution core had registered Park Eugene's research database as a compatible information source. An optional integration was available, passive read access to her alien materials catalog in exchange for shared scan data from the Star Eye field.
A mutual upgrade, both systems feeding each other,
neither system compromising its host.
He looked at Park Eugene. She was still working on her portable panel, running the beacon chain data against her reference tables.
He explained the integration offer in 3 sentences.
She looked up, read his expression, read the panel he turned toward her.
Then she nodded once, the way a scientist nods when the data confirms the hypothesis she was already running.
Integration accepted on both ends. The Star Eye panel expanded by 1 section. Alien Materials Catalog. Live feed. Indexed. The first entry that resolved in the new catalog was not a resource type or a compound name. It was a manufacturer identifier. 12 characters in a script that did not match any human language system in the regional database.
And beside it, in parentheses that Park Eugene had added herself from her own research notes, builders of the Iron Pilgrim class vessel, builders of the standard repair drone chassis common in this regional, builders of the ancient evolution core model, consistent with the substrate detected in at least 3 documented escape pod class vessels this season.
At least 3. He was not the only one.
The previous owner of the Rust Ark had known, had left a note, a patch, a cell, had not survived long enough to pass on anything else.
Somewhere in this regional, 2 other handles were sitting on ancient evolution cores. They may or may not have yet activated.
He filed the information with the weight it deserved, then kept working. Fuel at 22%, second scout still inbound, watcher still parked, horde consolidated, Park Eugene and crew aboard, research network established, beacon chain mapped, dead fleet zone on the horizon. The immediate problem was fuel. The second problem was Im Daeung's timeline. The third was Vermilion. He opened a trade channel with the Psy Broker Hub's fuel broker, a handle named Steel Line, who ran a small depot 3 jumps north. The price was steep. Hull plates and navigation charts from the newly acquired regional maps. The trade closed in 4 minutes. A fuel drone launched from Steel Line's depot on autopilot course. 6 hours until arrival. Enough margin against the second scout's timeline if he shifted grid sectors in the interval. Coil breaker pinged privately while the fuel drone was in transit. The captain had new intelligence from a separate network channel. Vermilion had not left the regional after the retreat. He was parked at a dead signal zone 7 jumps out, running his own passive observation across the regional grid. Vermilion was not watching Scraplord specifically. He was watching the whole board. The old pirate captain was reading the regional the way an experienced predator reads a landscape, looking for shifts in the animal population that signaled something larger was moving through. He already knew something larger was moving through, because the something larger was Im Daeung. Vermilion was not Im Daeung's man. Vermilion was older than Im Daeung's network and careful enough to have survived this long without being absorbed by it. Star Eye filed the read under Independent Predator, non-aligned, dangerous by default, potentially neutral if left undisturbed. Old Pilot confirmed the read in a separate ping. Vermilion and I go back, he wrote. Do not provoke him. Do not try to recruit him. If he contacts you directly, be honest. He respects honesty more than leverage. Filed. Vermilion moved to a different category in his mental structure. Not threat tracker. Adjacent. Park Eugene finished her beacon chain analysis and brought the results to the cockpit threshold. The dead fleet zone at the end of the chain, she told him, was inside a sealed signal boundary that matched the manufacturer identifier in her catalog. The builders had sealed it themselves, not to hide it, to preserve it. The ships inside the zone were not wrecks. They were not abandoned in the way the Iron Pilgrim had been abandoned. They were parked deliberately, sealed deliberately, left waiting deliberately. For a claimant who had a specific kind of scanner. The kind that could read a peer-level inquiry instead of triggering a defense response. His breath sat in his chest for one long count. The ancient evolution core, the Star Eye, the patch, the note, the module and the Iron Pilgrim sealed locker, the alien drone field guarding something Im Daeung had dropped there 3 days ago. None of it was random. None of it was luck. Somebody had set this up, had seeded the region with breadcrumbs for a specific kind of passenger,
had arranged for the rust ark to carry a specific kind of cargo, had ensured the rust ark would end up in the hands of a passenger who could read what the crumbs were pointing toward.
The previous owner had known, had not survived long enough to reach the end of the chain.
He was the second attempt.
His uncle's voice. When a customer brings in a dead device, do not start fixing what is broken. Start identifying what is still alive, then build from that.
The ancient evolution core was still alive. The star eye was still alive. The beacon chain was still intact. The dead fleet zone was still waiting.
The question was, who else knew the chain existed, and how close they were to reading where it ended?
M. Daeong's package in the drone field was 3 days old. Someone on M. Daeong's inner layer had been in this region long enough to know the drone field existed and had used it as a dead drop.
A dead drop that only a Star Eye level scanner could safely retrieve.
M. Daeong was not just hunting bottom-rank anomalies. He was hunting a specific kind of anomaly, the kind that carried a specific kind of system.
And he had been hunting them long enough to have prepared a trap that only the target could open.
Minjun sat with the implication for 30 seconds. Then he pulled up the regional map on the navigation panel and started running new vectors.
The dead fleet zone was 8 jumps east-northeast. The drone field with M. Daeong's package was 4 jumps southwest. The second inbound scout was 6 hours behind him.
The old pilot was 3 jumps north in a mid-tier long-range scout with ample fuel and a reputation older than his own license.
He opened a channel to Old Pilot.
The old man answered in 2 seconds. Either he had been waiting, or he had been watching the regional so closely that 2 seconds was all the lag his habit allowed.
I need a read on the drone field package, Minjun said, and I need a second set of eyes on the beacon chain. I think M. Daeong knows where the chain ends.
A pause. 3 seconds. In Old Pilot's cadence, 3 seconds was a long count. Then I know where the chain ends, kid. I have known for 2 years. I was waiting for someone who could open the door.
The channel sat quiet.
Outside the cockpit window, the drift zone hung in the regional dark, 12 small handles in their familiar loose formation. Star Eye ran the passive field, Watcher behind the dust cluster still parked, Second Scout still inbound. Park Eugene's 3 research contacts at the edge of the scan range. Vermilion 7 jumps out in the dead signal zone, watching the board.
And somewhere 8 jumps east-northeast, under a sealed signal from a vanished civilization, a fleet of ships sat in the dark, waiting for the right passenger to arrive.
Who was there before us? Minjun asked on the channel. In the dead fleet zone. Was anyone there before?
2 people, Old Pilot said. The first was the previous owner of the rust ark. She made it to the outer boundary and could not open the seal. She understood what she was looking for, but did not carry the right system to request entry.
A pause. The second was M. Daeong himself, roughly 8 months ago. He also could not open the seal. What he could do was identify what kind of system would be required to open it.
That was when he started hunting anomaly handles.
Minjun's hands sat still on the panel.
So, M. Daeong did not want to recruit him. M. Daeong wanted to use him, wanted to get a Star Eye carrier inside the seal boundary and then take whatever was inside.
Every hunter Choy Dohun,
Every scout, every watcher, every pressure piece, the drone field dead drop, all of it had been designed for one purpose: to acquire a Star Eye carrier who would walk into the dead fleet zone and open the door that Im Dae-young could not open himself.
And Im Dae-young had expected the carrier to comply, because Im Dae-young had not expected the carrier to know any of this. The information in the pirate captain's data core had not been meant to fall to Minjun. It had been meant to go back to Im Dae-young as a field report. Choy Dohun had been meant to deliver it. Choy Dohun was in a tumbling escape pod with 10 hours of air and nothing to deliver to anyone. The morning's kill had done more than break a pirate pack. It had broken Im Dae-young's timeline by a precise and significant margin.
Old Pilot was quiet on the channel for a moment, and then he said, "The second scout is a timeline piece. Im Dae-young is accelerating because Choy Dohun is silent, and the recruiter needs a new approach vector."
5 hours and 40 minutes on the second scout's clock. And at the end of 8 jumps, a dead fleet zone with a door that only opened one way.
He looked at Park Eugene standing at the cockpit threshold with her portable panel in both hands and the alien materials catalog open behind her eyes.
He looked at the Star Eye panel with its pale blue glow steady in the cockpit dark.
He looked at the ancient evolution core's quiet pulse running through the deck plate under his feet.
There was a very simple decision inside all the complexity. He could wait for Im Dae-young to find a new approach. He could let the second scout close the distance. He could park in the side broker hub and run the intel broker trade and grow slowly and carefully in the regional middle ground.
Or he could move tonight, before Im Dae-young recovered his bearings, and reach the dead fleet zone first.
The fuel drone was 6 hours out. He did not have 6 hours of margin before the second scout arrived.
He did have 22% fuel. 8 jumps to the dead fleet zone. Estimated burn cost, 17%.
5% reserve, the thinnest margin he had ever run. Thinner than the morning's run to the Iron Pilgrim. Thinner than the drone field extraction.
The rust arc had held at every margin he had asked it to hold.
Park Eugene was watching him think.
"If we go," she said, "my research vessel stays tethered. I have the full alien materials catalog and the beacon chain reference key. My crew has the drone field behavior record. Mireul's data on the dead signal boundary is 3 months steep."
She paused. "What you have is the only system that can open the seal."
"Together," she said, "is faster and safer than either separately."
He looked at the panel. 22% fuel. No ammunition. Shield at 0. Hull at 36 after the stern strike. Engine at 42. B-rank turret installed but empty.
Park Eugene's research vessel tethered behind. 3 researchers aboard, counting her crew and his. Old Pilot on the channel.
He opened the channel to coil breaker.
"I need a distraction that holds for 5 hours," he said. "Not a fake burn. Something that looks like I am running a long salvage vector into the western drift."
Coil breaker was quiet for 4 seconds. Then, "My ship can run a broad western sweep and broadcast on a private handle that mimics your scan signature. Costs me a half-day of fuel. What do I get?"
He told Coilbreaker the coordinates of 2 of the 3 wrecks from Dustland's navigation chart, both confirmed ownerless, both outside the Pirate Pack's current sweep range.
The trade closed in 6 seconds. Coilbreaker's ship began its western burn 90 seconds later.
He opened the channel to Old Pilot. "Coming with me or watching from there?" The old man's answer was faster than any of his previous responses. "Coming."
Rustark's engine lit at 20% thrust. The research vessel tightened on its tether. Old Pilot's mid-tier long-range scout fell into formation 3 jumps behind, quiet enough that the watcher behind the dust cluster read it as a different traffic pattern entirely.
8 jumps east-northeast. The regional fell away behind him.
Star Eye extended its passive scan across the full 15-jump field and painted the route in pale blue from the navigation panel. 4 jump segments clear, 3 with minor debris, 1 with an inactive relay beacon that Park Eugene's catalog identified as a secondary marker in the same chain.
They paused at the secondary marker while Park Eugene ran a quick scan. The relay beacon added 3 additional waypoints to the chain, filling in a gap in the route that the primary beacon had not included. The dead fleet zone was not at the end of a straight line. The chain spiraled. The last waypoint was positioned such that approaching from the correct angle was itself a form of authentication. Any ship that arrived at the dead fleet zone without following the spiral in order would approach from the wrong angle, and the seal would not read the approach as a peer-level inquiry.
Dae-young had approached from the wrong angle 8 months ago. He had not known about the secondary marker.
He had been hunting Star-Eye carriers to find someone who would follow the chain correctly without being told they needed to. Someone for whom the Star-Eye itself would lead them through the waypoints in the right sequence.
Minjun had done exactly that, not because he had planned it, because each scan had led naturally to the next. The system had been doing its work all along.
Old Pilot's voice came through on the private channel. "Last chance to turn back, kid."
Minjun looked at the pale blue panel. The Star-Eye waited, patient, the way it always waited.
He did not turn back. The dead fleet zone opened on the final jump, like a held breath releasing. No lights, no broadcasts, no heat signatures at any frequency a standard scanner would read. From the outside, the zone appeared to be exactly what its name implied. Dead.
On Star-Eye, it was alive with signal.
17 ships, roughly in the configuration of a fleet at anchor, command vessel at the center, smaller vessels ranged outward in a pattern, Park Eugene's catalog identified as a standard formation for a civilization that had used the dead signal as camouflage, not as a sign of destruction.
The 17 ships had been sitting here, sealed and waiting, for longer than any living passenger in the regional had been alive. The command vessel at the center was the largest. Star-Eye read it and wrote a slow, careful panel in pale blue. Ancient prototype command vessel. Generation pre-collapse. Manufacturer consistent with all prior identified origin markers. Hull integrity sealed at 94%. Power plant active at low reserve. Crew complement 0. Claim status unclaimed.
And at the bottom of the panel, in the same slightly fainter text the Star-Eye had used for every recommendation, peer inquiry recognized. Entry permission pending host confirmation. Minjun's hands rested on the panel. The rust arc held steady in the dark, its engine quiet, its hull patched and scarred again, its deck plate humming the note that had started on a floor in a leaking pod with an oxygen alarm already screaming. Park Eugene was completely silent at the cockpit threshold. Old Pilot Scout held its position 3 jumps back.
In the dead fleet zone, 17 ships waited. Beyond them, 8 jumps back, Dae-young's second scout was still on its inbound vector with the knowledge that Scraplord had dropped off the regional broadcast somewhere in the drift. The watcher behind the dust cluster had lost the trail when Coilbreaker's western burn pulled his attention. He would find it again. They always found it again.
The question was whether the door opened first.
"Confirm," Minjun said. The dead fleet zone's sealed signal opened the way the alien beacon had opened, not with force, but with recognition.
The Star-Eye went brilliant for one long second, pale blue flooding the cockpit, until Park Eugene shielded her eyes, until Old Pilot's voice broke across the channel with a single word that sounded like it had been waiting 2 years to be said.
The signal resolved. The ships in the zone shifted from sealed to unclaimed, all 17. The ancient prototype command vessel sent a quiet docking request to the Rustark's magnetic clamps.
Not a demand, a request.
Star-Eye wrote the new panel slowly. Ancient prototype command vessel, primary claim established, host Han Minjun. Hull 94%, power plant active, weapon system sealed pending host activation. Crew compartment capacity 12, active drone complement 14 drones, cargo hold capacity class 6, evolution core integrated, growth limit unknown.
The remaining 16 ships in the fleet registered as secondary claims, associated with the primary claim by chain of possession, pending host assessment of each vessel individually.
Minjun read the panel once, read it again.
looked out at the 17 ships hanging in the regional dark.
The morning had started with a rusted escape pod rated as scrap, an oxygen alarm already screaming, and a name at the absolute floor of a board of billions.
The evening was ending with a command vessel older than any civilization currently alive in the regional, and 16 additional ships parked alongside it, and a researcher whose catalog could read what the ships were made of, and an old pilot who had spent 2 years waiting for the door to open.
And behind all of it, Da-young's second scout, still coming, still 6 hours out, pointed toward a coordinate that Scraplord had already vacated. The information war was not over. Da-young still had his inner lair. Vermilion was still watching the board from the dead signal zone 7 jumps away, where he would now be reading a fleet activation signal that had not moved in years. Coil Breaker's western burn was still running. Dustline was somewhere in the regional, running on fuel he had traded for, not yet knowing that the anomaly handle he had trusted with a navigation chart was now standing in the bridge corridor of a pre-collapse command vessel.
Saltlight was still parked at her fixed orbit, trading nutrient paste and waiting for cleared wreck coordinates.
The galaxy had not changed shape.
Inside the dead fleet zone, Minjun walked the bridge corridor of the ancient command vessel for the first time. The air was old and perfectly preserved. Not stale the way the Iron Pilgrim had been stale, but sealed, the way a time capsule holds its breath.
Park Eugene walked beside him, her portable panel running continuous scans, her crew behind her mapping the corridor layouts. Old Pilot had docked his scout to one of the 16 outer vessels and was running his own quiet inventory.
The bridge was larger than the Rust Ark's entire cabin. Clean lines. Surfaces the same dense material as the cargo expansion module, as the ancient evolution core housing, as the drone chassis from the Iron Pilgrim.
Everything built by the same hand.
At the center of the bridge, a command seat, sized for a pilot smaller than Minjun, with harness fittings that resembled but did not match human proportions.
He sat in it anyway. It fit badly, the way the Rust Ark's pilot seat had fit badly when he first strapped in that morning. He refitted the harness by feel, and the buckle clicked shut. Suddenly, the bridge felt more like his than it had 30 seconds ago.
Star opened a new panel above the command seat, larger than any panel it had shown him before, and began writing in slow, careful lines.
Fleet designation sealed, pending host naming. Vessel complement 17. Current host rank insufficient for full fleet command. Required threshold regional rank top 10,000. Current rank trajectory at present growth rate estimated 48 hours.
48 hours. 2 days of trading, salvaging, information brokering. 2 days of staying one step ahead of Da-young's scouts and Vermilion's patient observation, and the information war running through every private channel in the regional.
Park Eugene read the panel over his shoulder. Her expression did not change, but her eyes moved the way they moved when data confirmed a long-held hypothesis.
She had been in this regional for 2 years, she said quietly, before the survival galaxy activated, before humanity arrived. She had been a researcher on the pre-existing colonial infrastructure survey team, a team of 6.
She was the only one still alive.
The others had been taken by pirate pack raids, 3 months apart, across the span of 18 months. Da-young's inner layer had been specifically hunting the survey team because the survey team had been mapping the beacon chain. Old Pilot's voice came through the bridge channel. "I was the survey team's escort," he said. "I failed the other 5. I have been in this regional ever since, waiting for someone who could finish the job." The channel went quiet. Outside the bridge viewport, the regional dark held its usual stars. The same stars that had watched Han Minjun wake on a cracked floor with a screaming oxygen alarm and a name at the bottom of a ranked board of billions. The stars had not moved. Inside this vessel, everything else had. He leaned back in the command seat and let the moment settle. 48 hours to the rank threshold. Da-young still on the board. 16 ships to assess and claim individually.
a research partner with 2 years of alien materials data, an old pilot who had been waiting for this outcome long enough to call it a job.
And somewhere in the regional, 11 other anomaly handles on M. Dayong's list, most of them still alive, most of them still unaware that the thing they were carrying in their hull was the breadcrumb from a vanished civilization's last known logistics chain.
They needed to know every one of them was a target. Every one of them was also, potentially, something else. He opened the regional DM panel, not the side broker hub channel, the full regional, and he pulled up, one by one, the 11 handles from the pirate captain's operations file.
The message he sent to each of them was 4 lines. Your handle is on M. Dayong's list. You have been identified as an anomaly, and you are a target. Move grids immediately. Reply with 1 word if you want to know more.
He sent the message and closed the panel.
Park Eugene looked at him from across the bridge. The galaxy is watching what you just did, she said.
He knew. Sending 11 messages simultaneously across the regional was visible to any scanner watching the board. M. Dayong's scouts would log it. The watcher behind the dust cluster would log it. Vermilion would log it. He had just announced to anyone paying attention that Scrap Lord had M. Dayong's operational list, that he had read it, that he was acting on it. The information war had been running quietly until now, on the level of passive scans and deception layers and private channels and carefully timed distraction burns.
This was a different level. This was Scrap Lord broadcasting that he knew the shape of the board.
Replies began arriving within 90 seconds. 7 of the 11 handles responded. 4 with the word yes, 2 with coordinates, 1 with a panicked block of text that resolved, on reading, as a handle who had already been approached by M. Dayong's scouts and had not known what it meant.
The handle's name was Quiet Wave, the same handle that had posted the floor remembers your address line in World Chat on the first morning, and then deleted it 2 seconds later.
Quiet Wave had known, on launch day, that mocking the floor was wrong, had posted the warning, and then pulled it back out of fear.
The handle had spent the day since hiding in a Class 3 mining hauler with a damaged scanner and an anomaly rank jump it had been trying to suppress.
Minjun sent Quiet Wave the coordinates of the dead fleet zone's outer boundary and the approach angle. You do not need to come here, he wrote, but you should know this exists and that the door is open.
3 of the 16 outer fleet vessels were smaller than the others, scout class, agile, carrying what Park Eugene's catalog identified as low observable hull coatings that reduced scan returns to a fraction of a standard vessel's signature. He filed the 3 scouts under future use. If M. Dayong's inner layer was coming, 3 low observable scouts parked in the drift shadow were a different kind of answer than the B-rank turret that had broken Choy Dohun.
Old pilot's voice came through the bridge channel again. I have the outer vessel inventory, kid. You should hear the second item on the list.
He waited.
Medical vessel, old pilot said. Class 4, medbay at full operational capacity, synthesized compound storage at 90%. The specific compound Park Eugene was carrying is listed in the ship's manifest.
Not the single vial, the production source. Enough supply to run a regional medical operation for 2 years. The compound that upgraded hull regeneration past its current tier cap at regional scale. Park Eugene made a sound that was not quite a laugh and not quite something else. Minjun sat in the command seat and let the size of the thing settle. A vanished civilization had parked, in this dead fleet zone, everything needed to run a regional operation of significant scale.
Medical capacity, scout capability, command architecture, cargo expansion at Class 6, alien materials processing, evolution cores that grew without a posted ceiling.
And they had left the door locked in such a way that only someone with a specific combination of need and capability and patience and the willingness to learn from a cracked floor with an oxygen alarm screaming could find it. He thought about the previous owner of the Rust Ark, the woman in the torn pressure suit, frozen at the end of the Iron Pilgrim's corridor, hand still reaching for a console that had never lit. She had been the first attempt. She had not made it to the end of the chain. He thought about the 6 members of Park Eugene's survey team,
about the 5 who had not survived, about old pilot watching 5 separate failures and staying in the regional anyway, waiting for the door to open.
He thought about Greyark, whose signal had vanished in the first hour of the first day, who had broadcast panic in the open channel and been answered calmly by an old voice that knew the coordinates of a wreck cluster.
The galaxy was full of Greyarks. It was also full of dust lines and salt lights and old pilots and quiet waves who had posted a warning and then pulled it back. The survival galaxy was not fair. It had never tried to be fair. The civilization that had left these ships in the dark had not left them for everyone.
But the ship they had chosen to carry the key was a rusted escape pod, rated as scrap, given to a 22-year-old engineering student who knew how to triage a broken device.
Which suggested the builders had understood something about what kind of passenger they were looking for.
The morning's count was this: hull 62% after the fleet's integrated repair system had run its first cycle on the rust arc, engine 68%, weapon power 35% with the B-rank turret and pending resupply from the fleet's weapons vault, shield 31%, port side, already restoring from the fleet's integrated generator.
Fuel 90% from the fleet's reserve line.
And in the cargo bay, sitting in its sealed medical container, the vial of compound that would push the hull regeneration past its current cap, now accompanied by the full production source in the Class 4 medical vessel 30 meters off the port bow.
The galactic ranking had not yet updated. He was still somewhere in the lower middle of a board of billions. No longer dead last, no longer dying, working toward the top 10,000 on a 48-hour trajectory.
Daung's second scout was still on its inbound vector toward a coordinate that Scraplord had vacated hours ago. The watcher behind the dust cluster was still parked, reading empty traffic.
Coilbreaker's western burn was still running, patient and expensive, and worth every fuel cell Minjun had traded for it.
He opened the channel to Coilbreaker. "You can pull the burn," he said. "I'm clear."
Coilbreaker acknowledged. Then, after a pause, "Scraplord, where are you?"
He looked out the command vessel's bridge viewport at the 16 silent fleet ships parked in the sealed dark. At Park Eugene's research vessel tethered to the fleet's outer ring, its lights now on, its crew running full scans. At Old Pilot's scout docked to the medical vessel, its running lights the first lights this dead fleet zone had seen in longer than any living passenger could measure.
He told Coilbreaker the coordinates. The channel went quiet for a long time.
Then Coilbreaker said, "I am going to need a moment."
He allowed the moment.
Vermilion's handle pinged on the regional public channel while he waited. Not a 7-word threat this time, not a packed message format. A single question, addressed to no one visible, posted in the open regional.
Who opened the Mireul Sia?
Mireul. So the vanished civilization had a name in the regional's oldest documented records, and Vermilion knew the name, and Vermilion had known what the dead fleet zone was before any of the morning's events had begun.
He filed Vermilion's read upward one more category. Old, patient, watching this outcome for longer than any scout Daung had placed in the field.
He posted one line back to the regional public channel. "The floor," he wrote.
The regional chat went quiet for a full 10 seconds. A board of billions, a morning's journey from scrap pod to command vessel, and the regional went quiet for 10 seconds. Then Saltlight posted 2 words. "Well done."
Old Pilot did not post publicly. He did not need to.
In the command seat of an ancient vessel, older than any ship in the regional, Han Minjun sat with his hands on the panel and let the morning's weight settle into the evening's quiet.
The oxygen alarm had been screaming 14 hours ago. The floor of a board of billions had been his address. The galaxy had handed him a rust-grayed escape pod and told the world chat to laugh. The world chat had laughed. The galaxy had not known what was under the deck plate. Daung was still out there. The 11 anomaly handles were now warned, but not yet safe.
The Dead Fleet Zone seal had opened, but the information war that would follow the opening had not yet fully started.
Park Eugene's survey still had gaps. Old Pilot's debt to the 5 survey members he had failed to protect was still a weight he carried. The second scout was still on its inbound vector toward nothing, and when it arrived at nothing, Im Da-young would know the trail had gone cold and begin looking for a new approach.
The board would update again in the next batch cycle. Scraplord's rank would jump. Not to the top 10,000 yet, but visible enough to redraw the shape of the regional in a way that the loud handles and the quiet handles and the patient predators would all have to recalculate.
He had 17 ships. He had allies. He had a sealed data core with Im Da-young's name in it, and an information broker's reputation in the side broker hub, and a research partner who had been running this regional longer than the survival galaxy had officially existed.
He had a private system that grew every time he acted on a read, and a deck plate that hummed a note no other ship in the regional could match.
The galaxy had given him a scrap pod when everyone else got a warship. The galaxy had been looking at the outside of the package.
He had looked at the inside.
Outside the bridge viewport, the 17 Mireul fleet ships held their silent formation in the dark. The stars beyond them sat exactly as stars sit, unblinking, very far, some of them closer than they looked.
Park Eugene was still working at the bridge station behind him. Old Pilot's running lights were steady on the medical vessel. 3 research crew were mapping corridor layouts. Somewhere in the regional, 11 handles were reading his message and deciding whether one word was a price they could pay.
The floor of a board of billions had remembered its address. The floor had done more than remember. The floor had found the door at the end of the chain, opened it without a key that anyone had been able to see, and walked through into something the galaxy had been keeping dark for longer than any living passenger had been alive.
Scraplord was not the name the galaxy would use for this handle by morning.
But the name had been a good disguise while it lasted, and the morning, for the first time since the oxygen alarm, belonged entirely to Han Minjun.